Good morning. It's your boy Terrence Cummings, aka the Music Master, coming from lovely Tupelo, Mississippi, home of Tupelo Music Academy, Team Music Masters. We like to welcome everybody to the Music is Life podcast. Today, we have a very, very, very good guest, good friend of mine, very smart businessman, musician, just overall great guy. Can't wait to bring him on. But before we get started, just wanted to go through a few things. Tupelo Music Academy here in Tupelo, Mississippi. We are under open enrollment. We have slots available for you with your music lessons. We go from voice to strings and everything in between. If you're wanting to learn for your church or your band, we're definitely here for you. The podcast is sponsored today by Tupelo Music Academy and Team Music Masters. Team Music Masters for your corporate gigs, private parties, and wedding events. Our team is catered to your needs. If there are certain things that you want, we can provide for you. So today's podcast is sponsored by Team Music Masters. Now, I'm going to introduce my special guest today. I met him by another friend a few years ago in the music arena. Got a chance to check him out when I first met him on his instrument, and I was wowed by the acumen he brought to the table, and then the overall professionalism that he exhibited when we were playing. But man, he was just fun to be around. We laughed, we connected, we had a good time. I learned a lot. Very easy to work with. I've had him in a couple different situations and always been professional, always been nice, always been courteous. And over the years, I've seen him grow with his family. Today, we want to welcome Mr. Justin Dudley.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on, brother?
Hey, man, you got it, man. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here on the show today, man. And like you said, man, we go way back.
Man, yeah, it's I was actually talking to Duncan a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
and I just didn't realize how much time.
It's been a minute.
Look like we got a little muted there. But
Yeah, I lost your audio.
Yeah, I said I had talked to Duncan a couple of days ago, and I didn't realize how much time has passed since we've all been together. And man, what has it been about? I think we were saying what, 10 years?
Yeah, almost 10 years now. Yeah,
Dang,
that's a long time.
it really is. Because most of the time with bands, you don't get that tenure, and you know, sometimes it's like hit or miss. You get an opportunity to play with someone, and then it's over with.
Right,
But
that's true.
But with you, hadn't worked out that way, and I'm glad. So, Justin, welcome to the Music is Life podcast. For those who don't know you, introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your story, and we'll go from there.
Sure, man. Yeah. My name's Justin Dudley. Originally from the Central Florida area, near the Orlando area, and I actually, um, I can give you the long version or the short version, but I'll try to sum it up into a medium version. I grew up in Central Florida, and I was kind of into sports a lot. I actually played a lot of football from the age of 6 all the way up to my into my 20s. So as far as a music standpoint, I started learning to play music at the age of actually 5, playing drums, like a lot of musicians, especially musicians from the church, started playing at the age of 5, and actually matriculated from playing drums to learning keys at the age of 8. So yeah, long story short, went through high school, actually got a football scholarship to Lambeth University in Jackson, Tennessee, where I am now. and played my 4 years there. Won 3 conference championships. Did some good things there, and had a good time in college. And but I was always raised in the church. Was a Became a local musician here in Jackson, Tennessee, and then start working outside of the church. Music afforded me to do some touring and doing some work outside of the church in Memphis and Nashville. Memphis is one of my stomping grounds. Actually, Memphis kind of molded me into the musician I am today. And then doing some touring work in Nashville with some country acts, and also doing a lot of studio work. So yeah, that's kind of where I came from and who I am.
I didn't know you did the football thing. Okay.
Yeah, man, that's how I got to Jackson, Tennessee, on a full football scholarship to Lambeth. And man, after playing ball, that season, passed where I got offered to go to the next level, and I got hurt my sophomore year in college and played my junior senior year with no problems, and I got offered to go to a couple camps, but I realized my season was coming to an end with that, and I just didn't want to go any further. Still love the game today, so. Uh, yeah, then music started like really, really taking off then. So, here we are.
All right. So with the music, you said you start off with drums. What led you to different instruments? Because my saying is always the musician doesn't pick the instrument picks the musician. It's usually one that just gravitates to you. So how was your evolution in that?
That's interesting that you asked that question. My dad was I was always around it. So my dad was in a singing group. It was a kind of like an ensemble group, wasn't a quartet, but they did more like your Walter Hawkins, your that kind of stuff. Some of the DFW stuff, they did some choir music. They did like a couple things. So I was always around music, and when I started, I learned the skill. I have two god brothers who grew up. We are very, very close in age. We're like months apart, and their father and my father went to high school together, and they always were in choir or always were in drama together. And they kind of made a pact when they were in high school. They said, when we have kids, he was a musician. My god brother's father was a musician, so they made a pact. My dad and my uncle made a pact together that when they have kids, they would teach each other, music. So he taught his sons how to play. They're twins, and they in turn taught me how to play. So we always grew up together, played sports together and against each other because they went to two different high schools. Uh, so when I actually learned, well, what made me be interested more in keys was my one twin played drums, one twin played keys. He never really played drums as much, even though he knew how to. So I kind of just, you know, found interest in both instruments because of the two people. So it was like, I was really like almost destined to do either or. And just by influence, So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That's an interesting story to have, those connections with people. Because I know a lot of times when you go back and you think about things, I had one of the teachers at Tupelo Music Academy last night. He was asking me about my brother-in-law who I interviewed a couple days ago, and he was like, how are y'all connected? And I told him all of the different ways we were connected, going back to my brother-in-law's uncle with my father, and then him connecting with my brother, and it's just so many links in there
Mhm.
that led us to where we are today. So that's a very interesting story, because on our musical journey, sometimes we do forget those things, but those are the building blocks and foundation to get you to where you're going. So you're starting to play keys. Did you ever take lessons?
Yes, it's interesting. My mom, she actually enrolled me into like a music academy when I was younger. Again, like 9 years old, and it's funny because it used to be I used to take piano lessons at a store in the mall, because I always used to like going to this music store, and they had a bunch of organs and keyboards and drums. All this stuff was in the mall at the time.
Man, that's so old school.
I know, man. So I started, really like, Mom, can I go to the mall? Can I go to the mall? She knew where I was going. I'm either going to the music store or the arcade. So um, there was a lady, Miss Fran, and she was of the Caucasian persuasion. But what I can say, I learned quite a bit from her, from in terms of theory. My godbrothers that taught me, they played mainly by ear, and which is, that's gospel church. Hey, I'm getting that foundation, but I'm also getting the music theory. So I was doing kind of like both at the same time. I always like pride myself in not limiting myself to one or the other. I'm always got my hand kind of touching, and bringing the two together, fusing something to make it my own, so.
Now I like that. I remember in church we would go to different places, and I would often hear musicians say, "Hey, what key we in?" And it was like, "Well, I don't really know. Just pick and find it." And I always was like, I don't kind of want to do that. So, as a saxophonist, and especially you thinking about early '90s, playing in Tupelo, Mississippi, of all places. It ain't like I had a whole lot of people. So, but at the same time, I understood, hey, let me go to band. Let me learn some things. And one of my mentors, Dr. O'Neal Douglas, he kind of guided me. So I got the band part, which you were talking about, the theory part. But then I was in church. So when we came to jazz band or Black Voices at the high school, it was like, man, how did you learn how to improvise? I'm like, church. You figure it out. So I like the way you put that together, because you have to, at Tupelo Music Academy, I know we try to put those things together for our students, because you just don't ever know. Having a knowledge of reading music. I know we were called in a couple months ago to do some sheet music, and then we were called back and we had lead sheets and we had solo. So having the best of both worlds definitely helps. So from that, when you're learning how to play, what was your first paid opportunity to?
Oh wow. Now this is a trip. There was a lady, she was the minister of music at my church. Back in the day. I was about 12 this time. And I was always, again, known as the drummer of the church. I still was just kind of playing drums. I didn't really start playing keys alone until around the age of 13, like playing different services by myself. So I never forget her name. Her name is Miss Irma Armstrong. They were in the studio. So I actually did my first studio session on drums at the age of 12. And it's kind of funny because I never forget, it was around football season. It was jamboree time. So I'm in middle school thinking, oh man, I'm finna go ladies. It was only like a 2-song like demo thing or whatever. And but then I got paid for it. So I'm thinking it's around football time. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm finna go lay these songs down and I'm finna go to the jamboree. Not realizing that what it takes to do that kind of work, the time that it takes to put into, putting a good piece of music out, So yeah, that was my first I guess my first gig, if you will, as a paid musician.
At 12.
At 12.
Lord have mercy. You said 13 was around about the time I started to play a service by myself. For some of our musicians that's going to listen, especially the young musicians, they're going to be like, wow, playing a service by myself.
Yeah.
I remember starting saxophone at 12 and coming in and trying to play and sounding a hot mess. But thank God for my parents who were patient.
and don't feel bad, because when I say that with grace too, because when I was 13 playing services by myself, I'm not what I am today. I wasn't being what I am today.
Yeah. A lot of people just don't know. It's you go up through steps, and it's just not, people not coming out. I have a good friend now who plays professionally and for a gospel artist. And I remember when he first started, he wasn't what he is now when he first started. but he quickly got there with a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of hard work.
yeah.
But
It
it
helps
does
you get
take
there.
steps and a lot of repetition in playing. So let me ask you this. So we are really, really pushing our young musicians. They want to play. They definitely want to get out there. What do you talk about? What would you say as far as your practice habits?
Okay. I can say this. Number one, sports help me become disciplined. So one of the key factors you're gonna have to have is discipline. Again, it kind of goes back to the story where I said, I was wanting to go to the football jamboree, but I had the studio session I had to do. So I could have easily said, I don't care about this studio session. I want to go hang with my friends. There were many days, many times that I was wanting to do other things, but I knew the investment that was put into me from my parents in terms of what they invested in music lessons, what they invested in me in terms of equipment. By that time, my dad had bought me a piano, a full upright piano at the house, and right after that, they had bought me like my first, like I guess, keyboard, if you want to say real keyboard. Um, so I would say, for the young guys, take pride in discipline and kind of like setting your, if this is what you really want to do, it has to be a passion, it has to be a love. It can't be, it can be a hobby, but if you're serious, it becomes who you are, it becomes what you do. And then take that same energy and passion and drive into practice. I would practice at least an hour or two a day. Sometimes I would get on my mom and dad's nerves. That's why they bought me the keyboard, because I could actually plug it up and headphone up and play all night long if I wanted to. So, and sometimes I would do that. I would get into it. I'd be playing for hours and know I had school the next day. And man, I didn't care. I'd be in bed I didn't get in bed till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's just, take that discipline, and take that energy into and put them together, just kind of develop um, yourself, so it will take you further down the road, because that those things then turn into things like professionalism, knowing your music, knowing your part, being on time, all this stuff, all that works together. So just take everything that you gather and just put it all in one and then take it down the road with you.
Now I love that. Now that's a perfect segue into my next question. All right, so we're practicing. We've learned things, and so we have musicians out there, and we talked about this a couple of days ago. Being consistent, being professional, showing up on time, knowing your music, knowing what you have to do. What if musicians right now who are on the cusp of maybe jumping into the professional level, what would you say are one or two of the most important things to have in crossing over to saying, hey, I'm going to that next level? What are the one or two things that get you over that hump?
Um, there is a lot to that, but I would say one of the things that helped me was always I always stayed hungry, and then I also always stayed knowledgeable. And when I mean knowledgeable, I'm talking about knowledgeable of the trends of music, the styles of music. I'm talking about playing styles, um, and taking that, and along with professionalism, being on time and all that stuff, taking that into the next phase. So many musicians, young musicians, sometimes kind of discount themselves and kind of X themselves out from other veteran musicians that are MDs, or they're either producers for records, or that type thing. They kind of X themselves out by the lacking of those things I just mentioned. Um, there's I kind of, when I say Memphis helped me pay dues, it really did, because Memphis helped pave the way for the things I did in Nashville. Um, I was playing, of course, I always played at church, keep that in the background. But when I was doing more of the professional stuff, I actually got my first tour at the age of 19. I went out with a blues musician, and the guy, who's a dear friend and brother to me, he's the first person that introduced me to the gig lifestyle, or the, working professional outside of the church, studio work outside of the church. So, always make good with your relationships, because those relationships, I always get calls from him to this day for things that he's doing, um, that are global now. Like, he is one of the MDs and one of the guys in charge of hiring bands for the BB King's cruises. They go all over. They go to Holland. They just sent out a thing last week, looking for musicians. So I set out to say, keep your relationships professional. Keep your never burn the bridge that you crossed over, and never forget the bridge that you crossed over either. Um, because you never know when you have to cross them again. So I just, I take those key factors into everything I do now, because I'll it also matriculates and turns into revenue. So those things I can, live off of. I have a degree. I have a sports medicine degree. I always have that to fall on. And I have other things to fall on as well. But music has done a lot for me for the last 27 years, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so take those things and go from there.
Man, that right there was just a gem. Man, you put 3 or 4 huge gems out there. I love the relationships. Um, you know, having those connections. Someone asked me, man, how do you get, so many opportunities to play? And I said, because I keep relationships with people. I reach out. I don't even ask for anything. I'm gonna check, how you doing? You know,
Right.
how's the family? Routinely, I know I've done that with you. Uh,
Right.
man, how's your family? I don't want nothing. Just how y'all doing?
Yeah.
Communication. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and then just another thing, and I said this earlier when I introduced you, just being nice. It don't cost nothing.
It costs you nothing. It's nice to be nice.
I was telling my wife, I was like, it just don't cost you nothing just to say hello or good to see you or just to speak or just to be nice. And I know everybody had their days. I get it, but
Sure.
just to be nice. And I know I've been in situations where I played with some people. They were rude, it was difficult, and you don't want to go back, even though they were, off the hook. But, you know, dealing with that, and then the fact of knowing how to keep those relationships open, because over the years I've been blessed to have, things come my way because of people that I know. The other part of what you said is um, the building blocks. I love that because you've taken from day one and you've just built on that. I think we as musicians don't think about that enough. The building blocks to get you where you go. They think a lot of times we think it's one big thing and it blows us up, and it's really not.
Hmm.
It's a lot of building blocks to get us there. So this is gonna lead me to my last question. What is Justin doing today? Where could we see him the most?
You know what? This year has been a interesting 12 months. I recently lost my father back in June, who was very pinnacle in my music career. He helped me get me started. So I this year I've been taking some time off just to work on, like myself and family stuff and business and on that side. But in terms of music, I'm still on social media. I'm an IG guy. I'm not really a Facebook guy as much. You can be my friend on Facebook, Justin Dudley. Just find me there. You'll see the face, or look up on IG, Mr. Do Right. That's DOOWRITE, Mr. Do Right. Um, and that's where I am as far as music and career. I am still very active in Nashville as a studio musician. So I'm kind of like in the closet in that respect, just playing on a bunch of records, country records, some pop records, and some of them are new. I get offered, tours, but I don't really go out as much because I got family. I got two little ones at the house, so I kind of, wife and kids and all that stuff. So I don't go out as much. Occasionally, I'll do the the bar gig or the club gig just to keep my chops up for fun. It's just fun, and it's always fun to play with the horn guys, my live horn guys. We do that. So and that's what I'm doing right now in terms of music. Still working on a church album right now. Back in 2008, I was afforded to produce and co-produce my church album that was nominated for a Stellar. So we're actually kind of slowly building a new project out right now. So we'll hopefully put it out in the coming year. So little things like that, more production than touring than seeing me out as much. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. And we're going to link all that up in the bottom of the interview where you can locate Mr. Dudley. We definitely appreciate you being on today, man. You have dropped many great gems for young musicians and professional musicians. I appreciate you. I always enjoy being around you, and I got to get you down here with me a couple times this year to play. So I'm putting it in. Already putting it out there. I got to bring you in because I do have some pretty good gigs. I really do need you to be on. But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Okay,
but I appreciate you, and until next time, I'm your boy Terrence Cummins, aka the Music Master. This is Music is Life podcast, brought to you by Tupelo Music Academy and Team Music Master. Y'all be blessed.